Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years, we've been asking the Frenchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Heather Ruff, the co-founder and vice president of operations at SPENGA. We're also meeting with Scott Nichols, senior vice president and franchise development at SPENGA. And SPENGA is an unrivaled fitness experience. Unlike any studio of its kind, SPENGA combines 3 essential elements of fitness to create what's simply known as the best workout ever. And we're going to talk to Heather and Scott about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years, we've been asking the Frenchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Heather Ruff, the co-founder and vice president of operations at SPENGA. We're also meeting with Scott Nichols, senior vice president of franchise development at SPENGA, and SPENGA is an unrivaled fitness experience. Hi, Heather. Hi, Scott. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Marty. How are you?
Hi, Marty.
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for both coming on the show. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning?
We are in Orland Park, Illinois. It's a south suburb of Chicago.
Oh, nice. How's the weather there today, Heather?
Freezing.
I imagine so. It's to be expected, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's cold here in Eastern Pennsylvania as well. So, and that's where the company began, right, Heather and Scott?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fantastic. I was reading about your backgrounds, your biographies. It's very impressive. I thought, maybe we could start off. You could tell me a little bit about yourselves and, what are your roles at SPENGA?
Sure. So I'm the Vice President of Operations for SPENGA. I've been in the fitness industry for, I don't want to date myself, but since college.
Long time.
And have held numerous personal training jobs, managed lots of clubs around Chicagoland, and then about 6.5 years ago started with Charter Fitness as a training director, and we've kind of evolved and created SPENGA. So now as the VP of Operations, I'm more involved with training and developing instructors and overseeing the operations of our first corporate-owned studio.
That's great, Heather. I mean, it's one of the benefits of franchising as well is, that your franchisees get to benefit from all of your experience. Again, you mentioned it, doing it such a long time now. How about yourself, Scott? I mean, what were you doing prior? I
have been in the franchise world, it seems like, for dog years.
You're going to date yourself too, aren't you?
With a whole bunch of different companies in the restaurant business, in the hotel business, in the retail world, and now I'm doing this is my first foray into franchising for a fitness company.
It's a nice partnership then, too, isn't it, Scott? I mean, coming together, with Heather, because in doing this show such a long time now, one of the common themes is that, when a business is ready to franchise and they start franchising, it gets a little complicated, doesn't it? Because, franchising, I would say, is a totally different animal, isn't it? So to have your experience combined with Heather, I'm sure that adds a nice synergy to it, doesn't it?
I'd like to think so.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's fantastic. SPENGA is an interesting word. I mean, maybe you could tell us the concept, and how you came up with the name.
Sure. Well, we honestly probably wasted a lot of time. We spent months in a conference room in front of a whiteboard throwing up all kinds of words having to do with fitness and motivation and all kinds of things, trying to figure out the name for this place. And we finally one day just kind of took a step back and thought, okay, we need to simplify this, make it a little less complicated. So we just took the SP is from the first two letters of SPIN, the EN is from the middle of strength, and the GA is from the end of yoga, and we've got SPENGA.
Wow, that's clever, Heather. It's going to go in the dictionary one day, isn't it, that word?
I'm planning on it.
That's fantastic. Maybe, you could walk us through SPENGA. I mean, because, as I was reading about, the business model, I mean, SPENGA is really an experience, isn't it? Definitely.
And we like to say that it's kind of a multi-sensory experience, from even just stepping foot through the front door. We have aromatherapy, so there's a signature scent that everyone notices when they walk in, to the design, which is really sleek and clean, and then even the music is really great. We had a DJ in Chicago help us build these playlists that are pretty on point, pretty motivating music. So that's kind of when you walk in the door. The actual workout, when we get into the workout, we took basically the three most important components of fitness. So you have cardio, strength, and flexibility.
Right.
We do 20 minutes of each and bring it into one 60-minute session. So those three components for SPENGA are spin, strength, and yoga. So like I said, we do 20 minutes of each, and we preach in every session that it's you versus you during the workout. And we find it especially true on the bike, which is the first part. We start in spinning and spend 20 minutes in there where we're a little bit different. We coach off of power. So we're paying attention to wattage and determining how hard you're working based off of the power you're pushing on the bike. And one thing that's a little unique to SPENGA is, we understand that everybody has different cardiovascular capabilities and not everyone can push the same power on the bike. So we've developed what we call a sweet spot test. And it's basically a power threshold test to determine kind of what the client's comfortable with on the bike. And to find that threshold for them, that's their sweet spot. And then we coach them to work either above or below that sweet spot during spin.
It's great to take that assessment, too, in the beginning, isn't it, Heather? So, this way your clients, of course, know, that they're improving. And I bet you the 1 hour goes by very fast, breaking it up into 20-minute intervals, doesn't it?
It definitely does, yeah. And that test at the beginning, it kind of personalizes the whole session for everyone because everyone has a different sweet spot. They've got different capabilities. So it makes everybody feel like, okay, I can come in and do this. I've got my own number, my own sweet spot. I know where I should be and how hard I should be working.
That's fantastic. Sure. In doing this show a long time now, I mean, we're hearing a lot more about the influx of boutique fitness concepts. I mean, how big is the industry now, and how does it compare to, let's say, traditional fitness concepts?
It really has just exploded recently. Mm-hmm. Right now, boutique fitness studios account for 42% of the health club market right now.
Wow, that's
what's
amazing.
Even more remarkable about that stat is it's just between 2014 and 2015, that number has doubled. So it basically jumped from 21% in 2014 to 42% in 2015. So it's clearly an area that's just mushrooming, exploding in terms of growth, and we recognize that. We were in the charter fitness, mm-hmm. a more traditional fitness environment that was just a health club with machines and so forth. But we recognized early on that we wanted to be part of that market, and that's part of what motivated us to do SPENGA.
Those numbers are amazing, Scott. I mean, what is that attributed to? I mean, because that's some pretty significant growth, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, where it is. The market's kind of. What's the word I'm looking for? It seems like the market's going in two different directions mm-hmm. right now. It's
right.
a boutique fitness studio, and then the other part of the market that's being driven is what we call the value-oriented or, high volume, low price, big box locations. So your
right.
Planet Fitnesses of the world, Anytime, Retro, those have shown tremendous growth. And then on the second track, from a growth perspective, you're seeing the boutique fitness cycle, which is, it depends. It varies, with with Soul Cycle, Orange mm-hmm. Theory, Cycle Bar is another one that we've heard of.
Right.
Shred 415. These are all companies that are coming out in the franchising world and trying to get a foothold. So that's where the market's going right now.
That's fantastic. Maybe we talk a little bit about your customer base. I mean, how do the members differ from more traditional concepts, Heather and Scott?
Well, our clients are pretty typical of boutique studios, but we probably
mm-hmm.
have a little wider age range.
Right.
I think at regular health clubs, the average age is around 42, and ours is a little bit higher. We've got pretty much 14-year-olds up to mid-70-year-olds.
Wow.
Doing SPENGA, so everybody can do it.
But it's what's amazing about it, Marty, when you see these classes, it's a fairly even mix. I mean, you literally will
right.
see millennials, which is typical, into the late 30s, early 40s, for lack of a better word, soccer moms, mm-hmm. on
sure.
up to seniors, people in my age area that are doing this, and it's an amazing mix. And what's beautiful about it is everybody is all pulling together, rowing together
right.
in this incredible workout. So a lot of fun to watch.
Yep.
Yeah, that really opens up the market, doesn't it? I mean, Heather was saying, starting at 17 years old and going all the way up to, an older client base, and I guess, you've seen it through your experience, Heather, is, I guess gyms for some people or fitness centers can be kind of intimidating, right? I mean, so, it's you're certainly not getting that with your business model, are you?
No, not at all. And to kind of reiterate what Scott was saying earlier of kind of the two directions of them going, kind of the more budget big box gym or the boutique studio. I love that it's going that direction, of course.
Mm-hmm. Right, right.
But I think it is because you're right. People are looking for that formatted, instructor-led
mm-hmm.
session or class
right.
where, they know they're getting a better workout than they would on their own. They like the group atmosphere, the motivation, the competition, and everything. That price point is sometimes a little bit higher, so they can also afford that big box gym as kind of a supplement to it, when they want to jump in and do some cardio or anything like that. So it's nice because they can afford both avenues and they still get that much better workout out of the boutique studio.
That's fantastic. We're speaking with Heather Ruff, the co-founder and vice president of operations at SPENGA, and also Scott Nichols, the senior vice president of franchise development at SPENGA. And maybe we could talk about, the company and where the company is at today. I mean, how big is the company today, and how many franchisees or units do you have in the system today, Heather and Scott?
Currently, we have the one company-owned and operated location in Mokina, which is a suburb just a little bit further south of us here in Orland Park. That's where we'll eventually do our training. We've just recently signed We have 2 franchisees who just signed their first deals, one in Raleigh, North Carolina for 5 units, and then we have another person that just signed literally this past Friday for another 5 units. So we have 10 committed franchise locations, but only 2 franchisees. Our preference would be to do multiple, what I call multi-unit franchise development expansion. And we have several other pending deals in Chicago and New York City. And what's amazing about it, Marty, we just got registered to start selling franchises basically the second week of November. So you factor in the holidays and the fact that we've been able to accomplish this in such a short period of time, literally 2 months. And then we have anywhere from, depending on the week, anywhere from 85 to 100 different people that we're talking to about potential deals. So the response has been remarkable.
Are you, as far as expansion goes, I mean, what regions of the U.S. are you looking to see, or do you see the greatest opportunities for growth, Scott?
Well, because of where we're based, geographically we want to support all the major markets in the Midwest. So that we're close, because we're here in Chicago. So the Minneapolises, the St. Louis, Kansas Cities, Indianapolises of the world are going to be key for us. But we're also looking to develop in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, both Carolinas, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Texas. And those are going to be the areas. But, again, all the major markets of the Midwest are our primary focus. And, again, so that we can, because of proximity, we can support them better from a franchising perspective.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Where do you see the company in 3 years, Scott and Heather? I mean, as far as, franchise units go?
We will hope to have between 135 to 150 locations signed in 3 years, and in that time frame, our boxes aren't that big. It's not a complicated development process because we don't need, health permits or things like that you typically have in a fast food restaurant. So we can get these up and running. In fact, we have one under development. The one that we have in Chicago, we just started construction at the beginning of the year. We'll have that open. I just talked to him. He said we probably should be open first or second week of April. So with that being said, out of that 150 signed commitments in 3 years' time, it wouldn't be unwarranted for us to have, between, say, 80 to 100 locations open and operating by that time.
That's fantastic. And you said something key, too, Scott, as you were mentioning. You said it's not complicated, and that's the key to franchising, too, isn't it? Is having that system or, that type of business model that's not difficult to set up. We've had some concepts over the years, in the 9 years of doing the show that seemed a little bit sometimes complicated to set up. And this seems a bit more simple, which is key to franchising, isn't it?
Very much so.
Definitely. And I think when we first developed SPENGA, the idea of SPENGA is, yes, we wanted to open a studio and, we wanted it to be successful and kill it. But from the very beginning, we planned on franchising. So even before we opened this first one, we were concerned with kind of the systems and, as we were building out the first one, we were thinking about, okay, how is this going to work for a franchisee? So from the very beginning, which I think is sometimes backwards of how franchisors do it. They sometimes open their business and then decide, hey, I've got a good thing. Maybe I should franchise it. We thought about it from the very beginning. So even as we were opening our first one, we were thinking about every single step and trying to make it as easy as possible for someone else to duplicate.
It's clever that you mentioned that, Heather, because, you're right, in doing the show such a long time now. That's been the typical scenario is the opposite approach where somebody has, a great business and then they want to systematize it. And it takes a very long time, where SPENGA, it was great that you thought of it right from the beginning to systematize this business model, because then you were prepared for it, weren't you?
Definitely. Yep.
And not just from, we systematized it all the way from, the equipment that we used, the pods that we have for the strength. The yoga is very simple, but it's a very elegant, appealing looking space in the model, and it blends seamlessly with the other areas of the business. But more importantly, everything down to how we train our instructors during the session. the music formats that we've designed. I mean, we'll have those eventually downloaded to a site so that franchisees, they don't have to reinvent the wheel from the music. They can just go right to the site and pull it down and use that for their instructors when they get up and running. So there was a lot of things that we really tried to streamline and, we keep using this word, but systematize the process to make it simple.
You were talking about your franchisees, Scott. Maybe we could talk a little bit about them. I mean, who is, would you say, do you have an ideal candidate when you look for franchisees, and, what types of characteristics do they possess?
Well, first and foremost, we're looking for experienced business people, owners of other businesses that have a passion for health and wellness. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have an experience in owning and or operating a fitness club, but that they have experience running a business, managing employees, executing marketing plans, and so forth. So we look for people that have very strong, what I call people skills and marketing skills, and then most important, that they have the strategic vision to recognize potential of an exciting new concept. It's a lot of people just kind of are set that they want to develop something that they're comfortable with, move forward. We're not looking for those types. We're looking for people that will look at this thing and say, my gosh, I love that concept. It's great. I don't know how to run it, but I'm sure you'll help me. So, and we will. So that's what we're looking for in terms of those characteristics.
That's fantastic. Heather was mentioning the training earlier. So it sounds like they will come to headquarters. Is that where training is going to take place then, or at the first franchise that you recently opened?
Yeah, so we've got kind of two tracks of training for new franchisees, and one of it is kind of that operations and getting everybody set up, managers, instructors, everybody set up with the operations of it, from using the software to marketing and sales and how to promote the business, and a lot of that's kind of classroom time and in-studio time. And then the other side of it, the other track, is for instructors, which is super important. They're the face.
Sure.
And we take care of the initial instructor training for all of the initial instructors, and then we also help the franchisee find or determine who would be what we call a master instructor, who we would prepare to be able to train future instructors, so it's easier for them to hire. So if they're not close to us, they don't have to worry about, every time I hire an instructor, I have to send them, to Chicago. We prepare somebody so that at their location they have someone who can train future instructors.
That's fantastic. Maybe talk a little bit about support, because that is a key to franchising. What type of support do you provide to your new franchisees, Heather and Scott?
Each franchisee is going to be assigned a business consultant that provides the operational support and business counseling. We have what we also do is provide a state-of-the-art hardware software package that manages, and this is one of the toughest things to deal with in the fitness world, is managing your membership base with your sign-ups, with ongoing billing and collections. It's a cookie-cutter process that a company that we work with provided us when we were with Charter. They'll do the same with us for SPENGA, and, of course, they'll provide these same services for our franchisees. So what else it does, which is great, it's not just your typical POS cash register system that you see in a fast food or restaurant, but the other thing that they've done a great job of doing is helping develop a eyeball, for lack of a better word, a viewpoint on your studio performance. So it gives you various metrics on your member retention, your sales. All of that stuff is provided in addition to it. So it really is a one-stop shop package that's going to be very beneficial to franchisees. And then, of course, we'll make available all the marketing collateral that we've employed and utilized for SPENGA, which has had obviously some background from our Charter Fitness days in terms of where we need to go to find new members, et cetera. So we'll use that for local marketing. And then the other thing that we've done, and Heather can talk a lot about this, is what we've done on social media.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited to actually share the information with people because we've tried a lot of things and we know what works really well, and the social media part of it is obviously really huge. So we've gotten really good at marketing our events. We do lots of kind of side events. We'll have kind of designer trunk shows, and we'll have date nights, and meet up after a session at a restaurant, and things like that. And we've gotten a huge response from our members to things like that, and I think it has to do with the way we promote, the way we market, and use social media effectively. So, I mean, all of that, we would help the franchisee with every step with that.
And that comes with your experience, Heather. Like you were saying, I mean, marketing and social media, I mean, that gets very complicated for a lot of people. They just don't know about it. They're familiar with Twitter or Facebook and things like that, but they don't know what works and what works and what doesn't work. So I mean, having that experience of you doing it such a long time now and saying, well, this type of campaign works particularly well and this one doesn't work well. I mean, that saves a lot of time to the franchisees, doesn't it?
For sure. And you learn to get your members working for you in social media.
That's
so
great.
It becomes a little bit easier on your end as well. You start posting things that you know that they'll share, or give them some incentive to share it, and they're doing the marketing for you.
That's fantastic. Is there what's a typical investment range for launching a SPENGA franchise?
Well, per the FDD, we give a range. It's $263,000 and change up to $578,000. But at the end of the day, depending on when the space that you find and whether you have a landlord that's willing to offer you some upfront tenant improvements as part of your package, you're really going to be narrowed down into the $275,000 to $400,000 range when it's all said and done for your. So it's a very affordable franchise model. The biggest chunk of change that you're going to spend on this is going to be your equipment, which is a little over $100,000. So it's a very reasonable investment for what we think is going to be a really exciting concept.
How much space is required, Scott? And is there an ideal location that you look for when opening up a SPENGA?
Yeah, 35 upwards of 4,000, but our real sweet spot for square footage is in that 3,200 to 3,600 range. So nothing. Where we're challenged is with our charter model, we have a much bigger footprint. We have 16 to 20, which is more difficult in today's retail environment to find. But the 32 to 3,600 really gives us a lot of great options to consider when we're looking for space for our franchisees.
That's great. As far as location goes, I mean, where do you like to be located, Scott? I mean, like in a strip mall or a standalone, or like how's that work?
Typically, we'll be in a strip center, not necessarily, a lifestyle center type. We're, again, because of the space, we have a lot of flexibility where we can go. But typically, our trade areas, we're looking for upper middle to upper income locales. But strip centers are fine. Power centers less so. And then, so we, our tenants can be anywhere from a Starbucks to, I'm trying to think who else would be in there. Massage Envy would be another tenant that we'd look at. Nail salons, hairstylists, places like that where people are, doing, getting out and doing general errands.
That's fantastic. The majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring entrepreneurs, Heather and Scott. I mean, most of them know that they want to get into franchising, but in doing the show such a long time now, we find that most of them simply don't know where to begin. And Heather, you're an entrepreneur, and Scott, you have all this experience in franchising. What advice would both of you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Well, the three things I always tell people is be passionate about the business that you're considering. Do your homework. And that's all in caps. I mean, do your homework. And then, most importantly, look for a franchisor that can walk the walk. I mean, not just franchisors, and I've done this for a long time, can do a lot of talking, but unless they can demonstrate to a prospective franchisee that they're willing to walk the walk and really invest, find that franchisor that's willing to invest in their franchisee's success. And they'll be able to tell that in that first face-to-face meeting. And that's what we are.
Fantastic. That's great. the best way for our listeners to get more information on becoming a franchisee, Heather and Scott? Is the website the best place to go to, or?
Yeah, they can go to www.spenga.com, or they can call me directly, 708-465-9113.
That's fantastic. I want to thank both of you again, Heather and Scott, for coming on the show. I think this is a great opportunity, and I'd really like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow. I think this is fantastic.
We'd love to come back.
Thanks, Marty.
It's been my pleasure, Heather and Scott. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Need a business loan? Talk to Diamond Financial Services, the experts in franchise financing nationwide. Whether you're looking to start a franchise, acquire an existing franchise, or expand your territory through opening new locations, Diamond Financial stands by your side start to finish. From pre-qualification to packaging and presenting your application to securing a financial commitment and through the loan closing process, Diamond Financial is there. While you're waiting, thousands of others are making their financial dreams come true. Don't wait any longer. Pre-qualify now by completing a confidential, no-obligation financial analysis. Let's face it, traditional banks just aren't in the business of financing small business. At Diamond Financial, we specialize in securing franchise loans from $100,000 to $3 million and equipment leasing up to $150,000. Let us help you get started. Go to www.franchisefunding.net or call 877-508-2274. That's franchisefunding.net, 877-508-2274.
Today's great quote in franchising is being brought to you by
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com. Or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and during that time we've had some incredible quotes and lessons on our show. And if you go to our About Us page on franchiseinterviews.com, you'll take notice on why we started the podcast and radio show Franchise Interviews, and it suggests that every business has a story. And that's really been our experience in doing all of these podcasts and radio shows. Is every show we do, you'll notice that every franchisor, every franchisee has an amazing story related to franchising. Today's Great Quote in Franchising podcast comes from Tony Lutfi. And Tony Lutfi is the Chief Executive Officer of the Marlu Investment Group. And the Marlu Investment Group are franchise owners of some very popular franchise systems such as Little Caesars, Sizzler, Jack in the Box, Arby's, Church's Chicken, and most recently Sears Appliance and Hardware stores. And Tony talks about the difference between opportunity and regret. There's another great quote relating to opportunity. And again, we talk a lot about opportunity on our weekly radio show. It's said that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. But let's hear what Tony says about the difference between opportunity and regret.
That we've been able to do on a large scale.
It's amazing. If you go back to the beginning, Tony, I mean, were your goals, I mean, today, I mean, you're as large as like 200 plus units, but I mean, back then, I mean, when you go back to the beginning, I mean, was that your goal in the beginning, or was this kind of like just like a natural progression over time?
It's both. Really, when I, in the early 90s, when I finally became a partner, a 10% partner of a small company, I wanted to get to 50 units before I turned 50. So I don't know if that goal was really feasible in my head, but that was the dream. But the goal, the most important part of it was I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to be independent, and I wanted to allow my ability to manage people and work with people to develop into something that was bigger. I didn't know the size, nor did I plan for it to be a number of revenue, whether it's 10 million or 5 million, whatever it was.
Right,
it was really finding a way to make a living and support my family, at the same time satisfying my personal need, which is to be an entrepreneur. And really, once that took place, it was more about the opportunities that came our way. And I always say the difference between opportunity and regret is being ready. So if you're ready, you see the opportunity as an opportunity. Otherwise, you spend a lifetime regretting the fact that you missed the opportunity. So to me, it's about being ready. And I've always worked so hard to make sure that we are ready for whenever that opportunity came our way.
That's fantastic. We have this great quotes in franchising podcast. We're gonna put that quote in there, Tony, if you don't mind. I think that's very powerful. Maybe we could talk a little bit about your company. I mean, the Marlu Investment Group. I mean.
If you'd like to hear that whole interview with Tony Lutfi, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com, and you can go to our franchises listed alphabetically page and simply go to the Marlu Investment Group, and you can hear that whole interview. We have that interview also in our About Us page, and you can go to franchise interviews by category as well, and go under the food category, because that's where most of Tony's franchises are located within his portfolio. And lastly, we'd just like to thank everyone for making this podcast such a tremendous success. It's amazing how many people have listened to the podcast over the years, so it's really been wonderful, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.